What's up, gearheads? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the vault of American automotive history to uncover 15 of the rarest muscle cars you've probably never even heard of. We're talking about cars so rare, some had production runs smaller than a high school graduating class. These aren't your typical Mustang Fastbacks or Camaro SS models. These are the unicorns of the muscle car world. Number 15. 1972 Buick GSX Stage 1. Kicking off our list at number 15, we have the 1972 Buick GSX Stage 1, and this one's a real head-scratcher for most people. The GSX Stage 1 came equipped with Buick's legendary 455 cubic inch V8, pumping out 270 horsepower and a massive 390 pound-feet of torque. But here's where it gets crazy. Buick offered 3 engine options in 1972, and the rarest of them all was the 250 horsepower 455 V8 variant. Get this, only 4 of these beasts were ever built, and of those 4, just 1 came with a 4-speed manual. The GSX package included functional hood scoops, racing stripes, and aggressive styling that made it clear this wasn't your typical Buick. These cars were built for straight-line performance and could run the quarter mile in the low 14-second range. Today, finding any GSX is like finding a needle in a haystack, but finding one of those 4 ultra-rare 250 horsepower models, you'd have better odds winning the lottery. Current estimates put these in the $150,000 plus range if you can even find one. Coming in at number 14 is perhaps one of the most legendary names in muscle car history, but in its rarest form. The 1971 Plymouth Hemi Cuda convertible. Now you might be thinking, come on, everyone knows about the Cuda. But hold on to your hats, because this isn't just any Cuda. Plymouth built exactly 11, that's right, 11 Hemi Cuda convertibles in 1971. To put that in perspective, you're more likely to meet someone who's been struck by lightning than someone who owns one of these cars. Under the hood sat the legendary 426 Hemi V8, the elephant motor that dominated drag strips across America. This wasn't the neutered, emissions-choked engines that would come later. This was 425 horsepower of pure, unadulterated American fury. The Hemi featured hemispherical combustion chambers, hence the name, which allowed for larger valves and better airflow. But here's what made the 71 special. It was the last year for the 426 Hemi in a production car. Plymouth knew the writing was on the wall with emissions regulations coming down hard. So 1971 was the swan song for this legendary power plant. The convertible Cuda was already rare because most buyers wanted the more practical hardtop. But combine that with the expensive Hemi engine option, and you get production numbers that make unicorns look common. Number 13 takes us back to 1963 with the Chevrolet Impala Z11, a car that most people have absolutely no idea exists. This wasn't your typical family sedan. This was Chevrolet's answer to the factory drag racing wars of the early 1960s. The Z11 was built with one purpose: dominate NHRA Superstock drag racing. Chevrolet stuffed a massive 427 cubic inch big block V8 under the hood. But this wasn't just any 427. This was the mystery motor, officially designated the Mark II 427, producing 430 horsepower and 575 pound-feet of torque, though many believe the actual output was much higher. Here's the kicker. Chevrolet only built 57 of these monsters, and they were built for serious racers only. You couldn't just walk into a Chevy dealer and order one. These were special order cars that came with lightweight aluminum hoods, no sound deadening, and other weight-saving measures. The Z11 could run the quarter mile in the low 12-second range right off the showroom floor, making it one of the fastest production cars of its era. But their racing origins meant most were beaten hard on the drag strip, and many didn't survive. At number 12, we have the 1969 Chevrolet Corvette ZL1, and this is where things get really exclusive. When we talk about rare, we're talking about a car where only 3, yes, just 3, were ever built for the general public. The ZL1 was Chevrolet's ultimate Corvette, featuring the same all-aluminum 427 cubic inch V8 that we saw in the Camaro ZL1. This wasn't just any 427. This was a race-bred engine originally developed for Can-Am racing. The aluminum block and head saved about 100 pounds compared to the iron L88 engine, and the power output was nothing short of spectacular. Officially rated at 430 horsepower, dyno tests revealed the ZL1 was actually producing closer to 500-550 horsepower. This thing was an absolute rocket ship that could run 0 to 60 in just over 5 seconds and blast through the quarter mile in the low 13s, numbers that would be impressive even by today's standards. But here's why so few were built. The ZL1 engine option cost an astronomical $4,718. That's on top of the base Corvette price. To put that in perspective, you could buy 2 brand new Camaros for the price of just the ZL1 engine option. In today's money, that engine option would cost over $35,000. Fun fact? The ZL1 engine was so advanced that NASCAR banned it from competition after just 1 season because it was simply too dominant. Number 11 brings us to the 1970 Plymouth AAR Cuda, a car built for one specific purpose: to dominate the Trans Am racing series. AAR stands for All American Racers, Dan Gurney's racing team, and Plymouth needed to build street versions to qualify for racing. The AAR Cuda came with a specially tuned 340 cubic inch small block V8 that produced 290 horsepower. Now that might not sound like much compared to the big blocks we've been talking about, but this engine was all about high RPM performance. It featured a radical cam, triple 2-barrel carburetors, and a rev limiter set at 6,500 RPM, astronomical for a production car in 1970. The AAR package included distinctive side exhaust pipes that exited just behind the front wheels, a fiberglass hood with a functional air scoop, and special wheels and tires. The exhaust note was absolutely intoxicating, like a NASCAR race car that you could drive to the grocery store. Plymouth built exactly 2,724 AAR Cudas in 1970. That was it, 1 year only. But here's what makes them special. They were engineered by the same team that built Plymouth's Trans Am race cars, so the handling and performance were absolutely phenomenal. The AAR could run the quarter mile in the high 13-second range, but more importantly, it could carve up a road course like few muscle cars could. It was one of the first American cars that could actually handle as well as it could accelerate. Breaking into our top 10 at number 10 is the legendary 1969 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. And this is where we enter the stratosphere of muscle car rarity and performance. The ZL1 Camaro was essentially a street-legal race car built for dealers who had customers wanting the ultimate performance. Under the hood was the same all-aluminum 427 cubic inch V8 that we saw in the Camaro ZL1, but in a lighter, more affordable package. This engine was hand-assembled at GM's Tonawanda plant, taking 16 hours per engine. Officially rated at 430 horsepower, the ZL1 was actually producing closer to 500-550 horsepower. This thing was an absolute rocket ship that could run 0 to 60 in just over 5 seconds and blast through the quarter mile in the low 13s, numbers that would be impressive even by today's standards. But today, finding an original ZL1 Camaro is like discovering buried treasure. The ZL1 Camaro represents the absolute peak of the original muscle car era. Raw, uncompromising performance with no electronic aids, just pure American power and engineering excellence. 1970 Dodge Challenger TA. At number 9, we have Dodge's answer to the Trans Am racing wars, the 1970 Challenger TA. Like Plymouth's AAR Cuda, this was a street car built to qualify a race car, and it was absolutely spectacular. The TA came with a 340 cubic inch small block V8, but this wasn't your garden variety 340. This engine featured triple 2-barrel carburetors, a radical cam profile, and was tuned to produce 290 horsepower at a screaming 5,000 RPM. The red line was set at an incredible 6,500 RPM, race car territory. The distinctive feature of the TA was its side exhaust system that dumped behind the front wheels, creating an absolutely menacing sound that announced your arrival from miles away. The functional hood scoop, racing stripes, and aggressive stance made it clear this wasn't a typical pony car. Dodge built exactly 2,399 Challenger TAs in 1970, a single-year production run that makes them quite rare today. But more than the numbers, it was the engineering that made these special. The TA was developed with input from Dodge's actual Trans Am race team, so the suspension tuning and handling were exceptional. The TA could run the quarter mile in the high 13-second range, but where it really shined was on a winding road. It was one of the few muscle cars that could actually handle corners as well as it could blast down a straight line. 8. 1965 Shelby Cobra 427 SC. Number 8 takes us to what many consider the ultimate American sports car, the 1965 Shelby Cobra 427 SC, where SC stands for semi-competition, and trust me, there was nothing semi about its performance. The 427 SC was Carroll Shelby's final evolution of his legendary Cobra formula. Take a lightweight British AC Ace body, stuff in the biggest American V8 you can find, and hold on for dear life. The result was automotive insanity in the best possible way. Under the hood sat Ford's massive 427 cubic inch FE big block, pumping out 425 horsepower and 480 pound-foot of torque. But in a car that weighed just 2,650 pounds, that's 1,000 pounds lighter than a modern Miata, the power-to-weight ratio was absolutely insane. We're talking about 6.2 pounds per horsepower, numbers that would embarrass modern supercars. The 427 SC could blast from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds and had a top speed of over 160 miles per hour in 1965. These weren't just fast, they were borderline dangerous in the hands of inexperienced drivers. The combination of massive power and primitive 1960s chassis technology created what many called a widowmaker. Shelby built exactly 348 427 SC Cobras between 1965 and 1967, making them incredibly rare and valuable. Each car was essentially hand-built in Shelby's California facility, with significant variations between individual cars. 7. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS LS6 450. At number 7, we have what many consider the king of the streets, the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle with the LS6 450 big block. This wasn't just a muscle car, this was a statement of intent from General Motors. The LS6 was GM's ultimate big block, officially rated at 450 horsepower and 500 pound-foot of torque. But here's the thing, everyone knew GM was lying about the numbers to keep insurance companies happy. Independent dyno tests showed the LS6 was actually producing closer to 500 horsepower, making it one of the most powerful engines Detroit ever put in a production car. The LS6 featured 11.25:1 compression, solid lifters, a radical cam profile, and was tuned to flow massive amounts of air through its specially designed heads. This engine was built for one thing, maximum straight-line performance, and it delivered in spectacular fashion. The 1970 Chevelle SS LS6 could run 0 to 60 in just 5.4 seconds and blast through the quarter mile in 13.12 seconds at 109 miles per hour, numbers that made it the fastest muscle car of the era. 16. 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. Number 6 brings us to one of the most distinctive muscle cars ever built, the 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. This wasn't just a muscle car. This was Dodge's attempt to dominate NASCAR, and it resulted in one of the most aerodynamically advanced cars of its era. The Daytona was built for one specific purpose: to go over 200 miles an hour on NASCAR's superspeedways. To achieve this, Dodge added a massive nose cone that extended 18 inches beyond the regular Charger's front end, and a towering rear wing that stood nearly 2 feet above the trunk lid. The result looked like something from outer space. Under the hood, buyers could choose between two engines: the 440 Magnum V8 producing 375 horsepower, or the legendary 426 Hemi pumping out 425 horsepower. 5. 1970 Plymouth Superbird. Coming in at number 5 is Plymouth's version of the NASCAR-era wars, the 1970 Plymouth Superbird. If you thought the Charger Daytona looked wild, the Superbird took aerodynamic extremes to an entirely new level. The Superbird was based on the Plymouth Roadrunner, but featured an even more dramatic nose cone and an absolutely massive rear wing that towered 20 inches above the rear deck. The wing was so tall that Plymouth had to design special brackets to mount it, and it became the most recognizable feature of any muscle car ever built. Like the Daytona, the Superbird was built to dominate NASCAR's superspeedways, and it worked spectacularly. 4. 1967 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. At number 4, we have the car that started the Trans Am Wars, the 1967 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. This wasn't just Chevrolet's first pony car, it was their first serious attempt at building a road racing machine. The Z28 was created specifically to compete in SCCA Trans Am racing, which had a 305 cubic inch displacement limit. Chevrolet's solution was brilliant. Take a 327 small block and stroke it down to 302.4 cubic inches, creating an engine that was technically legal but absolutely devastating. 3. 1963 Chevrolet Corvette Z06. Breaking into our top 3 at number 3 is a car that most people don't even know exists, the 1963 Chevrolet Corvette Z06. This was Chevrolet's first attempt at creating a factory race car, and the results were absolutely spectacular. The 1963 Corvette was already significant as the first year of the C2 generation, featuring the iconic split rear window design that was used for just 1 year. But the Z06 package transformed the Corvette from a beautiful cruiser into a legitimate race weapon. 2. 1967 Ford Mustang Shelby GT500 Super Snake. At number 2, we have perhaps the most legendary single Mustang ever built, the 1967 Ford Mustang Shelby GT500 Super Snake. And when I say single, I mean it literally. There was only one ever built. The Super Snake was Carroll Shelby's ultimate creation, built as a demonstration car for Goodyear's new Thunderbolt tires. Shelby took a standard GT500 and completely transformed it into something that bordered on insanity. Under the hood went Ford's legendary 427 cubic inch side-oiler V8, the same engine that dominated Le Mans and powered Ford's GT40 program. 1. 1967 Chevrolet Corvette L88. And finally, at number 1, we have the absolute holy grail of American performance cars, the 1967 Chevrolet Corvette L88. With only 20 units ever built, this isn't just rare, this is automotive legend territory. The L88 was Chevrolet's ultimate racing weapon, disguised as a street car. Under that iconic Stingray body sat a monster 427 big block V8 that was unlike anything Detroit had ever produced.